can I just ask you, first of all, obviously you've been in politics for a while now, quite long in the tooth as far as a Manx politician is concerned. Did you have any doubts about standing again?
No, I didn't. I believe that the challenges for the island continue to grow and continue to grow both in significance and potentially complexity as well. I believe now that the experience that I have, the track record that I'm able to demonstrate as Treasury Minister over the last 5 years will enhance the island's ability to deal with these, to tackle them, and to do so in the best interests of the people of the island.
Would you like to tackle those problems as Chief Minister?
I think the critical issue for me is, first of all, to conduct a successful campaign, to make sure that I have engaged as much as possible, as widely as possible, as broadly as possible across my constituency, clearly to win an appropriate vote. And then afterwards, I will hope to be engaging with like-minded politicians in terms of developing a plan for the island. And I think that's the critical issue here, is that last time we did a programme for government, when that programme was put together, it was uncosted. I think we can make significant improvements this time by bringing together a proper plan, a 5-year plan, a costed 5-year plan, in order that we can identify where our priorities are, where the expenditure needs to go to tackle the big issues of the day.
Interesting you're using the word we, because 5 years ago, you were an outspoken backbencher. And then you decided to move, if I can put it this way, into the tent. It must have been a fairly big decision. What prompted you to do that, to accept office?
Well, I think the timing was right. I had spent the previous 5 years on the backbenches, but of course ministerial positions are at the behest of the Chief Minister. I wasn't offered a ministerial post during that
Was the person who was Chief Minister make a difference to your decision?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, I think that, you have to put together a collegiate body that will broadly share the same values, broadly share the same objectives in terms of what needs to be delivered for the island. And the person who is leading that, put at the forefront of that, needs to be the right person to draw things together. I think I've always taken a very sort of collegiate approach. I recognise now I've got enough experience to let you have to listen to other people's voices. You have to take those into account. You shouldn't necessarily just always settle for consensus, but a lot of the time you have to pull everybody's opinions together to find the right way forward.
Yeah, I have a great experience now working in Kilman. Is there a danger in Kilman of a group think, of everybody thinking the same way because they feel obliged to?
Look, I don't know necessarily. I'm not into sort of over-analysing how the Council of Ministers has performed. What I am interested in now is making sure that we improve in the future. And I think there are lots of areas that we can see where there are improvement needed, including actual delivery on the ground. And for me, that is one of the critical issues. Time and time again, I speak to my constituents who believe the basics around the island are not being done particularly well, and the basic infrastructure plans and undertakings are not being performed. We have to improve our delivery, both from an environmental perspective and to enhance our quality of life, but also from a financial perspective as well. And also then, we need to make sure that in tackling the big issues, and I mean, there are some really serious issues facing the government at the moment, including climate change, for example, that there is a proper plan attached to these, a proper roadmap that is properly costed, and that is done so at the beginning, so that we really can focus on delivery and we're not sidetracked into unnecessary expenditure along the route.
Let's just talk about climate change. We had that big report by Professor Cannan. It seemed to give a lot of indications of the way the Isle of Man should go. We've now got another consultation, I note, being launched, asking people their opinion. Isn't that rather putting off hard action, which is needed to get anywhere on this question?
Yeah, we do need hard action, but we don't need incorrect action. There's potentially multi-millions of pounds of taxpayers' funds at stake here, which could go south if we undertake the wrong course of action. So I think it's right that we get the platform right, that we get the foundations of this right. And part of that exercise is making sure that we do consult and undertake our discussions with the community in a variety of ways. The island, this is a whole island project. People will be living with our choices, renewable choices, for many years and for decades to come. So I think it's absolutely right we create together the right vision. One thing that I do think needs absolute strengthening, though, is the decision making in the centre, where I think we need more expertise, more strengthening of the Climate Change Transformation Board, where I'd like to see more skilled engineers from outside government, more skilled both engineers and climate change experts, forming part of that core decision making process at the heart of this.
Sooner or later, decisions will have to be taken which won't be particularly popular.
I don't know about that, John. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is about prioritisation. When you say that decisions aren't going to be popular, you mean financial decisions.
Well, things that impinge upon people's lives, using of the cars, getting around the place, doing this, doing that. They'll think, have enjoyed doing this for decades. Why should I stop now just because something that could happen in the next few decades?
I think I've never been a fan of this unpopular or popular decision-making process. I think actually providing people understand the reasoning behind it, but providing the strategic outcome or the policy is reached in a positive and proactive way, and providing people understand why it is reached. I don't necessarily see that things will have to be unpopular. What we've got to do is to make this work fairly and justly for everybody. So when you're talking about climate change and we're pontificating about everybody's going to have an electric vehicle, well, we know the cost of electric vehicles, and we know that right now they're out of price range for most consumers on the island. So we need to be working out, when we put together things like a climate change plan and a climate change roadmap, we need to be ensuring that from a financial perspective, but also from an outcome perspective in terms of climate change, we've clearly targeted when, how and where we will affect such a transition. And in doing so, it's vital that we factored in how we are going to support the community in achieving that.
I suppose it all comes down to money. There was a famous axiom in politics, American politics, it's the economy is stupid. The next 5 years, it is the economy, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's a fundamental plank of what we're dealing with. We have to continue to succeed economically, and we have to continue to grow economically. And that's why we've put the Economic Recovery Group, which I've chaired as part of the sort of COVID recovery plans, has initiated this review from KPMG, who are assisting government in putting this together. That will be on the table very early on in the next administration and will form a plank, but we need to keep on growing the economy. We need to keep diversified economy. And again, there are certain actions that I think can be undertaken, reforms within government that could lead to better outcomes here in terms of a more targeted and focused approach in some areas. And that will be up to the next administration to put that together, because I go back to this point, delivery is vital. Policy, plans are okay, but they're nothing without actual delivery on the ground. It's vital the next government gets better at delivering. We need to have targets and we need to have benchmarks if we're going to deliver that successfully through organisations like the Department for Enterprise.
Yeah, we're doing quite well as well. I mean, one thing I noticed was VAT obviously has gone up quite substantially. I think it went from 369 million to 444 million. A useful time to get that sort of rise.
Well, look, we've planned prudently. My budgeting period over the last 5 years.
But will we continue to get that rise in VAT?
We've planned prudently. Not necessarily. I mean, that is all part of our economic success because we have successfully grown the economy over the last 5 years. I think because of the investment decisions Treasury has made in terms, I think, of putting people first and raising personal allowances, increasing child benefit, trying to put more money back into people's pockets. We've got the lowest rates of unemployment for over 20 years. We've started to diversify the economy. Other opportunities are coming on stream. And so, it's going to be absolutely vital that we continue to focus in this area and continue to target the growth, the economic growth in our economy. But
you're citing other areas coming on stream. Can you mention something that perhaps is going to be with us in the next few years?
Well, we've seen e-commerce. There's obviously now the new legislation around medicinal cannabis, which could come on to stream. We've obviously got to re-energise ourselves post-COVID, if you like, in terms of both the strategy that will be delivered in the autumn, but also in terms of our core strategic approach, which includes tourism and leisure.
Just go from the national picture, if I can put it that way, to the constituency picture. Just looking at the area that you're in at the moment. Kirkmichael has a cleaned up sewage system. It still has obviously a speed issue, doesn't it, of people going through your constituency. Something has to be done about that. They put in measures in Kirkmichael itself, which is not met with universal approval. I think these multicoloured pedestrian crossings, etc.
Well, we'll have to see how they work. But look, across the rural areas, there is an issue with speed in many parts, and has been across the constituency. I often deal with local residents and trying to sort out either speed limits or methods to try and slow individuals down.
The possibility?
Look, everything needs to be considered when you're looking at these matters. Speed in rural areas needs to be considered very, very carefully. We also have to balance out that there's now a lot of bicycles around, particularly over the weekend in the areas that we live. So, road safety, road speeds, that's not something that's going to go away. Again, what I would like to see perhaps is more interrelationship between those responsible for road safety, and particularly in Department of Infrastructure, and residents on the ground. And I would actually like to see more willingness to listen to residents' concerns and to consider speed limits where there is clear evidence that small residential gatherings or clusters of people are exposed to high speed during periods of time during the week and
As
day.
you've been knocking on the doors, what have people been saying to you about speed? Is that top of their list? What is top of their list?
Well, look, there are a number of pressing issues, but there's the localised issues, and they are very, very important. But the big issues, everybody is cognizant of fact and recognises that we are facing significant challenges in a much more nationalised way around climate change, around delivery of healthcare transition, focus now on education, post-COVID recovery. So, and of course, the economy, and of course dealing with these local issues. So, that's why I talk about delivery, John, because actually delivering proper outcomes for people on the ground, if you like, in terms of making sure that our potholes are looked after properly, that our grass verges are cut back on time and to schedule, that we react to people's concerns, that we keep the road markings correct, that we're looking appropriately where speed limits need to be. This basic delivery will give us a platform for success. But it is, of course, the big issues around COVID, economic recovery, healthcare transition, sorting out the healthcare waiting lists, education, that really are the dominant issues, and proper plan will need to be put together.
It's extraordinary how potholes though feature in some people's lives, don't they? They regard them as very important, especially, I suppose, when their car goes into it and does something to its suspension. Just putting that to one side, you mentioned health there. Obviously a very important, very expensive area. Can we afford the sort of health provision that people are expecting?
Well, this will be part of the reasons why it's absolutely sort of highlighting, and I will highlight in my manifesto, that any government plan this time must be accompanied by a costed budget process in which these critical areas which everybody wants to succeed are properly allocated the right funding, so that we can work out across the whole public set of public finances where we need to make adjustments, the appropriate adjustments, to ensure that we get the budget balanced. Talking
about the island, and obviously it's stood on the shoulders of finance for some time. How is the finance sector doing? Banks, for instance, we have less banks than we used to, etc. Is it doing well? Has it got confidence in the Isle of Man as a jurisdiction to do business in?
John, the finance sector has held up incredibly well over this COVID crisis, as have other areas of our economy, including our e-commerce sector, for example. Yes, our domestic sector, our retail, our hotels, our hospitality have all taken or had quite a rocky ride over the last 12 months. But finance sector, the key critical platforms, if you like, of our economic success, are in good health. But like everywhere else, we're still facing these critical challenges. So, for example, when it comes to finance now, there's a big, hefty agenda when it comes to international taxation.
15%, that's the big one.
And zero tax. We will need to negotiate our way successfully through that. That will, I think, require people who understand finance, understand the island, and of course we need to make appropriate judgments when the time comes in terms of our discussions with the OECD and indeed with our partners such as Jersey and Guernsey when we approach these matters. But I'm confident that the island still has the platform for a strong recovery post-COVID. We've got the lowest unemployment for 20 years, and yes, there are issues, inflationary issues, a lot of businesses facing a lot of challenges. But we can overcome these. We will get through this with the right post-recovery plan. And we have the platform for a successful and secure and sustainable future.
Obviously, when we had a big crisis some decades ago, we came up with 0-10. Have we got a plan waiting to counteract this 15%, which is going to make a big difference to our rates?
Well, as it currently stands, that rate is a rate that's set at a level of turnover that does not really apply to the vast, significant majority of Isle of Man companies. So as it currently stands, that is not necessarily would be regarded as what you might call a threat. I think, though, the global agenda on this matter is going to continue to develop, and of course, we wait to see what the economic strategy outline and plans are when they are, or proposals are when they're delivered in October, before we can make too many further judgments. But look, I'm going to continue to support and fight for a low tax environment. That's really been the platform for our success over the last 30 years, and it sure that this will remain the platform for our success well into the future. And that's why it's absolutely vital that, whilst, yes, we take the appropriate line in negotiations here, but we also continue to develop and diversify our economy, put in place the right infrastructure. But most importantly, we do have robust and sustainable finances for the future. They've proved a rock during the COVID crisis, and it's vital that they are maintained to the type of level and strength that we have been maintaining them over the last 5 years.
Of course, CEOs, when they come to the island, think, well, we set up business here, take a look around the island. They take a look at Douglas. And I know that Alan Bell always used to say it does take away business, people seeing what they see in Douglas. Douglas is looking a bit of a state still, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why brownfield site development and regeneration continue to play an important feature in any governmental plans. I think the establishment of the Manx Development Corporation, which we've just brought forward as a result of the Economic Recovery Group, has a significant role to play in this. And our plans and hopes are that will get on with its first project within the next few... It's more hopes
than expectations, though, isn't it?
No, absolutely not. We've been clear. I've worked with the board. I've been really pleased with the way they've approached this. I can tell you they've got a couple of key sites now in mind, and I'm very hopeful that before the end of the year somebody will be announcing plans about the development related to those key sites. The other issue, though, that is really striking at the moment is housing, particularly a lack of affordable housing for our first-time buyers and others on the island. And we now must make a concerted effort to build more appropriate housing, particularly affordable housing. And the government's going to take a long look at how it can now push forward with redevelopment and regeneration in our brownfield sites and within our towns to accommodate some of this, or to accommodate some of these critical areas.
And more support perhaps for younger people trying to get on the ladder, because housing, what's 313,000 is the average for a property on the island at the moment.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money for a young person.
Look, this is it is a critical area. I'm loath to use the word crisis, but it is a very important matter at the moment that needs addressing as a matter of absolute urgency.
Can you tell us about something you sat on a select committee some years ago on the domestic rating system? We seem to have come to a complete halt there, as we have done for years. Can we live without change, or does it need change?
I think the answer to that really lies with any government's plans for the future. Now, look, we've done pretty well without any significant reforms to the rating system. I think that the fundamental arguments around all island rates, I hope, have gone away. But
sounds like you're arguing against change.
We need to make sure. I think I've always been said that I am open to reviewing the rating system and ensuring, one, it is fair, and that everybody has a balanced set of rates that are equal and appropriate. There are some issues around single household rates at the moment, and certainly a feeling that they're not proportional for individuals living by themselves compared to others. That issue certainly needs looking at. But the critical issue is what people are actually paying for with their rates and what is being delivered. And that's really, I think, where the essence of this lies. We also have to consider, of course, that there is continued pressure on the cost of living now at the moment post-COVID. I think actually we'd made some significant steps forward in that respect at the beginning of this administration for the first 3 or 4 years when we've lifted it. Personal allowances, as I said before, where we've invested appropriately for working families. We've got to recognise now that we're going through a period of what I would call this sort of post-COVID recovery. And things like inflation, shortages of key goods, which are very apparent in the market, are all impacting on incomes and household incomes and inflation potentially. So, we need to be very careful how we handle the economy in the next couple of years, and coming forward with sort of rate increases or all island rate increases or pushing up taxation. It would not be the right way forward, I don't think, in the first 2 or 3 years of the next administration. And it needs to really, as I say, be very carefully about its set of prioritisation, how and where the money is being spent.
Alfred Cannan, standing in Ayre and Kirkmichael, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, John.